Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Jason Mattis. Thanks for joining me as we kick off another NFL season. That's right. A new season is upon us. I know it's been, maybe a rough year for a lot of us out there, but we've gotten to another NFL season and it feels great kicking off another season. The Bills obviously kick things off on Sunday against the New York Jets. Let me go ahead though and tell you guys a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Jason Mattis. I'm a writer, one of the writers over at buffalodown.com. In the description here in this video, I've got a link to that website where you can read a lot of fantastic articles that a lot of great people over there are putting out. We're writing articles on a daily basis. Also in this video description is the latest article that I wrote personally, where I took a look at post-roster cut down day there in the NFL, took a look and analyzed 4 of the reasons why I think the Buffalo Bills are the favorites to win the AFC East. So look for those 2 links there in the video description. On this show here, or to go along with that article, I'm going to be writing a lot of feature articles throughout the season. To go along with that, also every Friday morning, I'm going to have an article come out that's going to be on the Bills' best bet, where I take a look at the Bills matchup in terms of a betting perspective, looking at the over-under and also the point spread. You guys can obviously see this board that I'm sitting here in front of me called Winning Bets, and obviously my channel name, I'm also into sports betting, so that's why I'm also going to be writing that kind of content there every Friday for Buffalo Down. But look on Buffalo Down. A lot of great articles coming out on the week and on Fridays with myself, but a lot of great people over there turning out a lot of great articles. Also for the Bills, though, I follow the Bills extremely heavy. I'm watching all their press conferences. I've watched them all for the past, good 20 seasons or so. I only watch the coaches and the GMs press conferences. I really don't focus too much on the players. I find that they don't really give you much information, and they're awfully complimentary of their own teammates and also the opposing players. But from a coach and a GM perspective, they'll drop you nuggets on how they come to roster decisions, or how they maybe come to decisions about filling out the depth chart, or how they even strategize a little bit throughout the week. Them themselves, they will be a lot of vague a little bit, because they don't want to give out important information to the opponents. But from information that you can gather in the press conferences, GM and head coach, they've been really informative over the years, except for Rex Ryan. He was never too much of a joy to listen to, but that doesn't stop me from watching all of his stuff. And then as terms of from the practice perspective, I tune into Joe Piscalia and Matthew Fairburn over at The Athletic and kind of get my who's doing what at from a practice level, because I'm not at practice. So those are 2 of the guys that I get. So listening to press conferences, gathering information about practice related information from those guys, and then obviously watching the game and digging into it myself. So that's how we've come to that. I've got the comments section here open here on YouTube Live. Go ahead, drop the comments in there. Let me guys know what you're feeling as we go ahead and break down this game. I've got 5 points I want to talk about here in this Bills versus Jets game. And after each point, I will pull up the comments section, kind of see what you guys are talking about. And if there's anything worth shouting out, I'll go ahead and mention that. So let's do that. Let's jump on into this game. We got the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets on Sunday afternoon in Bills Stadium. It's a little odd, not having it be Ralph Wilson Stadium or New Era Field Stadium, but for the time being, it's being called Bills Stadium. I wouldn't imagine that's going to be for very long. Surely the Peacoolers are going to want to bring in some revenue, and somebody will get their naming rights up there. But for now, these teams will meet at Bills Stadium. Before I get into, I think, from a tactical standpoint and really analyzing the matchup of where I think the Bills can attack the Jets and where I think the Jets can attack the Bills, I want to look at this from a really high-level view. And the reason I want to do that is both of these franchises started their rebuild at the exact same time, and that was in the 2018 draft. Anytime you draft a quarterback in the top 10, you're hitting the reset button on your franchise. I know, obviously, the draft before that, the Chiefs drafted Mahomes 10th overall, but that was obviously an outlier. If you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10, you're hitting the reset button. So that's what both of these franchises did in the 2018 draft, drafting Sam Darnold to the Jets and Josh Allen to the Buffalo Bills. And if we focus right there on those 2 quarterbacks, and if you say maybe who's got the better of it, or maybe which of these 2 quarterbacks is better so far in their young career, I want to say it's kind of a little bit tough to analyze that. And I think largely in part, and I'll get to this a little bit later, is because of the rosters on these 2 teams. The Jets have not had the strength of the roster that the Bills have, quite frankly. So Allen has had it easier to have more success due to what's around him. And if I look at that and I say, okay, if I put Sam Darnold in the Buffalo Bills roster, would he be equally successful to Josh? more successful Josh or less successful than Josh. And I think Darnold would be at worst, I think he would be the same level as Josh Allen. And we'll get to Josh Allen here in a second, and that's to give, Darnold respect. There's a reason why Sam Darnold was the number 3 overall pick. There's a reason he has the pedigree. He's a really good quarterback. And I think it's the lack of talent that has held him back, with the New York Jets. So on the flip side, if we put Josh Allen in that New York Jets team, you're not going to get the same Josh Allen that everybody likes right now. The reason why everybody thinks Josh Allen has a really high ceiling, your opinion of Josh Allen would not be this high if Josh Allen was a New York Jet. Just the talent around him isn't that good. It's not a supporting level. And I think Josh Allen would be trying to make too many plays in that scenario. We saw it in his rookie season. We saw it a little bit there in his sophomore season. Josh Allen has a tendency to make too much out of a play. When a play's busted, he wants to, go for the home run and turn a busted play into a positive play. And he would be doing that, I think, a lot more often there if he was a New York Jet. I think that would get him in trouble. But in terms of which franchise is happier, I definitely think the Buffalo Bills are much happier. I think Josh Allen, with his running ability, you can't take that away from him. You have to factor that in when you're evaluating Josh Allen, and that sets him apart from a lot of quarterbacks. I know Sam Darnold can run, but he can't run like Josh Allen can run. That's a special talent that he brings to the table and puts a stress and a strain on opposing defenses. So, it has to be ignored. And also Josh Allen, he's got that dog in him. He's got that fight in him. He's got that moxie in him that rallies his teammates. Guys want to, go to war, go to battle with Josh Allen. That I just don't see Sam Darnold bringing that, to the games like Josh Allen does. He brings that. He's got that toughness. Like I said, he just inspires his teammates. So which franchise is happier? I think definitely it's the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, although I think they would also be successful with Sam Darnold. But give me Josh Allen if I'm the Buffalo Bills. I think they're definitely certainly right happier having Josh Allen. Now, also, if we analyze these franchises in terms of their rebuild, maybe how often, not looking at the quarterbacks, who's doing better, it's got to be the Buffalo Bills. The Jets have already hit the reset button within their rebuild. There's 2 times you hit the reset button and to go through a rebuild if you're a franchise. One, we talked about it, is when you're drafting a quarterback up really high. The other 2 scenarios are if you bring in a new coach and a new GM. And that's exactly what the Jets have done with Adam Gase and Joe Douglas there being their GM. They've already hit the reset button. So within a 3-year rebuild where the Bills have been successful, the Jets have already said, no, it hasn't worked. We got to blow it up. That means you're, changing philosophies on defense. You have GMs and head coaches that believe in different talent. They're looking at different body types, different, traits and characteristics that they look for in a player. So the Bills have definitely been much more successful. Just look at what they did with Sean McDermott a couple of weeks ago. They already gave him a contract extension. And it's just a matter of time before you wake up and you get a press release from the Buffalo Bills that they've gone ahead and signed Brandon Beane to an extension that's going to mirror something along in terms of the duration of Sean McDermott. So the Bills have absolutely gotten it right. I think they're extremely happy at the quarterback position. Like I said, they've gotten it right from a head coach, a GM perspective, where the Jets are, they're not a mess, but they admitted it's not working, and we got to hit the reset button. And then overall, though, so if we look at the strength of the rosters, because of that, the Bills have had 3 solid years of the same GM going with, whatever his strategy is, whether you like it or not, he's stuck to that strategy, and he's picking things that'll work within that, where, again, the Jets have had, a change in philosophy. So their roster is not as strong. And just look at, the Jets, they traded away, their best player this offseason because they wanted to, because they're still going through a reset and a rebuild. They said, okay, well, Jamal Adams can get us a lot of good assets to help us rebuild. The Bills wouldn't make that similar trade with one of their star players, I don't believe, because they don't need to get that much draft capital. Their rebuild is, I think, essentially, I don't want to call it over. You're always trying to turn the bottom of the roster. You always have to keep your roster fresh and bring in more competition, but they're not going through the kind of rebuild still that the Jets are 3 years later. The Bills are pretty much at the end of their rebuild, and the Jets, they're going to be at the bottom of this division. At least I believe they'll be at the bottom of the division. The Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins, I believe, will all be better than them. I know the Dolphins, are also still in a rebuild, but I like what they're doing. I like their head coach. They seem like they're competitive in a lot of games. So Jets, I believe, will be at the bottom of the division when it's all said and done. And we know the Bills are competing for, a division. The odds makers have them favorite. There's a lot of pundits around there that are picking Bills to win division. And at worst, people at least have the Bills as a wild card. Nobody's even mentioning that in the realm of the Jets. So in terms of these franchises, just looking at a very high level view, since we're comparing it from the start of the 2018 season, because that's when these teams took their franchise quarterback, the Bills have been highly more successful than the Jets over that period. All right, guys. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this game. Like I said, it's gonna be a good game. Let's look at the Bills offense versus the Jets defense. We know the Jets run a 3-4 defense. Let's focus on the wide receivers first for starters here. We've got the Bills wide receivers versus the Jets corners. I think this is an absolute mismatch on a really high level. The Bills are absolutely going to look to take advantage of this. The Jets starting cornerbacks in Austin and Desir, they're fourth and sixth round picks respectively. Hey, look, you can turn out and you can be a great player if you're drafted in the 4th or 6th round. We know that. There's tons of examples that would suggest that. But you're telling me a 4th and a 6th rounder one of those two guys is going to be paired up against Stephon Diggs? I mean, Stephon Diggs, you could run through the list. You're not going to get outside the top 10 without naming Stephon Diggs' name. At least I wouldn't, and a lot of other people if they're ranking wide receivers in the league. So Stephon Diggs should have an absolutely huge day, whichever one of these guys he's pinned up against. I think John Brown will have another good day. And I even think Cole Beasley working out of the slot. The Jets corners are not at any good level here to be able to compete with this. I've mentioned also they, traded away Jamal Adams. So let's say they do put their best corner on, Stephon Diggs. Obviously, they will end up doing that. They no longer have a Jamal Adams to help out whoever then, whether it's Austin or Desir, whoever's going to then get paired up against John Brown. So, Jamal Adams, he could do things that Micah Hyde does. Micah Hyde is a great center fielder. There's a reason teams don't go deep on the Buffalo Bills, and it's because of Micah Hyde. That's what the Jets had in Jamal Adams. He's obviously no longer there. So big advantage here for the Buffalo Bills wide receivers against this Jets secondary. As for the Bills running back against the front seven, look, this is another mismatch here for the Buffalo Bills where they should be able to take advantage. We know C.J. Mosley, he opted out of the season. His backup, I'm going to probably mispronounce his name, and I apologize to this guy. It's Onwuzar, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's on IR, so he's going to at least miss the first 3 games. Whoever they start in one of their 2 middle linebacker positions, because, again, they do play a 3-4 defense there in New York, they're going to be on the 3rd string guy. That is a terrible thing to go up against when you're going up against Singletary. And I know Moss may only be a rookie, but I really like this kid, Zach Moss. And when you look at that Jets front seven, all they really have is Quinnen Williams. That's their only real thing. Nothing else in that front seven scares you. And he even plays from the middle position. So they don't even have a pass rusher on the edge that's going to get to it. I don't see how they can even compete here from a front seven. This Bills offense should absolutely have their way. Again, nobody on the defensive line, I think, will give the Bills offensive line that much problem where the Bills offensive line has had that nice continuity from last season. They brought everybody back. Obviously, they've got an injury there to Feliciano, but they're going to plug in maybe a Ford over at right guard and maybe an Nseke up at tackle. Maybe you slide up a Darrell Williams up there. However they end up playing that out, the Jets just don't have a pass rusher that's going to scare them. So if you can just shut down Quinnen Williams, which I believe, they'll come up with a game plan. Brian Daboll will come up with a blocking scheme to neutralize Quinnen Williams. Once you do that, the Bills should absolutely have their way in the running game. I actually look in terms of the Bills running back, who's going to have a big day, because I've mentioned about Mosley and his backup being on IR and how they're already going to be on their 3rd string middle linebacker there. Zach Moss should have a big day. And I know he's a rookie, and I think that's the only thing that maybe could hold it back of Brian Daboll not wanting to put too much on his plate, rookie in his very first game. But this is definitely a game where the Bills should be able to run between the tackles, and that's Moss over Singletary all day long. So maybe you see out of the gate they want to limit Moss and help him get acclimated to the NFL. We know running backs can get acclimated to the NFL on a much easier level than a lot of other positions. So maybe he starts off slow in the first half, but boy, I would look for the second half that they start really to look for Zach Moss and start to just pound the ball, really right between the tackles. A big mismatch I think the Buffalo Bills have on offense against this weak Jets defense with no Jamal Adams and no Mosley. I mean, you guys are Bills fans. You guys saw what happened in week 1 last year. That was a game where it looked like, quite frankly, the Buffalo Bills were going to lose that game. CJ Mosley, he leaves injured, and that game flipped instantly. That's how much Mosley means. He's the leader of that defense. He's the guy who's, the quarterback on the defense, so to speak. He's the one making the calls, the adjustments. The Jets are really going to struggle, I think, really containing this Buffalo Bills offense. Stephon Diggs is going to want to shine in game number 1. He's having a good rapport with Josh Allen in practice. Wow, this Jets defense, they're going to be completely over mismatched. So before I get over to analyzing the Bills defense versus the Jets offense, let me see if we have any comments here going on in the section. There you go. We got a comment here from Beachy Mouth. Go Bills, circle the wagon. So we got a Bills fan there. Go Bills. All right. Let's look at point number 3 I want to make is Bills defense. Now let's analyze how they're going to go up against the Jets offense. Big mismatch right here in the trenches. I think it starts with Jerry Hughes of the Buffalo Bills. This guy, Pro Bowl player. He's got a really strong pedigree of rushing the passer. He's going to be going up against a rookie left tackle in Becton. I understand this guy was the 11th overall pick in this year's draft, so obviously he's got a lot of talent to be picked that high. We also know how much like quarterbacks are kind of overvalued, offensive linemen and especially tackles can be overvalued, but I don't want to diminish that. I mean, the man was an 11th overall pick, so he's got a lot of talent there, but like I just said about the Jets' weak defensive line, he hasn't seen a Jerry Hughes in practice. Yeah, they've gone through training camp and, they're gearing up for the season, but he hasn't even gone up against a similar person like Jerry Hughes to even, have that experience to get ready for what Jerry Hughes may bring at him, because the Jets don't have that on their own defense. So if you want to look at where can the Bills win in the trenches here in this game, where do they have a disadvantage or an advantage to attack the Jets? It's right there, Jerry Hughes on the right defensive end against the left tackle in Becton. Look for that rookie to get exposed. This could be a welcome to the NFL moment here by Jerry Hughes. I know he gets a lot of heat from Bills fans because he doesn't quite put up the statistics that he maybe did a couple other seasons ago back under maybe a Rex Ryan defense, but Jerry Hughes definitely still brings it. He commands the offensive line's attention. He frees things up for other guys. So maybe he does that in this scenario. But I just think also going up against a rookie left tackle, he's going to be able to get his own numbers. So look for Jerry Hughes to definitely, I think, dominate this game. As for moving on a little bit back in the secondary, Tre'Davious White. So if you look at Jets wide receivers, Perryman, he's their number 1 wide receiver. They brought him in this offseason. He's going to go up against Tre'Davious White. I'm instantly going to just say Tre'Davious White's going to take him out of the game. I mean, that's how good Tre'Davious White is. He's the highest paid. He was the highest paid cornerback for, what was that, about 72 hours or whatever it was until Ramsey there got a higher deal than him. But that just shows Tre'Davious White is an absolute elite corner in this game. Whoever he's lined up against, unless it's Julio Jones or maybe DeAndre Hopkins or Michael Thomas, he's going to be able to absolutely shut them down. So you take Perryman out, I think the only place the Jets can really attack the Bills on probably a consistent basis is through Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder is an excellent slot receiver. He was used 70% of the snaps last season. The Jets used him out of the slot, and he's going to be going up against Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson's a real solid tackler. We've seen that, and actually his solid tackling kind of gets him injured a lot. I mean, the guy spent his first couple seasons in Buffalo, and he's been injured. The way he goes in there, he tends to always hurt his shoulder. That's just who he is. But even if Taron Johnson stays healthy, I like Taron Johnson. He's a good corner or nickel slot corner, but give Jamison Crowder his respect. He's a really good slot receiver. So that is where I do believe the Jets will be able to attack this Buffalo Bills defense is there in the slot. Otherwise, they've got Chris Hogan. We know Levi Wallace will be paired up against him. It looks like Josh Norman, he hasn't practiced, much of really all this week. So do expect Levi Wallace to get the snaps, but because Tre'Davious White should be shutting down Perryman all on his own, if Levi Wallace needs help, they can put Poyer over top of Levi Wallace. They can obviously put Michael Hyde over top of Levi Wallace if they need be. So Chris Hogan will be taken out of the game. He'll get his numbers. He'll get 3, 4, 5 catches, whatever it is. But Levi Wallace, really outside of one game against the Cleveland Browns, he's like every other corner. Yeah, they get beat from time to time, but he was a really solid player last year. It was really just that Browns game last year where he consistently got beat pretty much throughout that entire game. Outside of that Cleveland Browns game, Levi Wallace, I think this was a really good sign by the Buffalo Bills a couple seasons ago. They're gonna be happy with Levi Wallace. Still got him on the cheap too. So, and so anyway, so look for the Jets, though. It's going to have to happen from the slot if they want any advantage. Now, if we look at the Jets running back, what will they be able to do there? They've got Le'Veon Bell, Frank Gore. I don't have to tell you Bills fans here about Frank Gore. You guys are probably extremely happy to see Frank Gore walk out of the door. So anytime Frank Gore trots onto this field on Sunday, Bills fans aren't going to have much of a worry. He Hall of Fame running back, sure, but not a Hall of Fame running back, anything close right now. He's not, obviously not playing at that level. So it's going to be up to Le'Veon Bell if they want to do any damage from the running back position. I'm not a big Le'Veon Bell person or a big Le'Veon Bell fan personally. I think he was obviously successful when he was at Pittsburgh. I think that's because Pittsburgh has a good line almost every season, if not every season. We just mentioned the Jets, offensive line is going to be weak, or is young there, at least with the left tackle. Le'Veon Bell hesitates a lot of it. That works in Pittsburgh. I just don't see Le'Veon Bell being all that accessible. The Bills have a great defensive line. They pride themselves on rotation, keeping those guys fresh, fresh and healthy all the way through the fourth quarter. So again, Le'Veon Bell may get his numbers. We saw it against the Buffalo Bills in week 1. He had a decent game, but will he single-handedly have a big enough game to, really worry this Bills defense? I just can't see it. I actually think the Bills got lucky here in terms of the running back position, that they're not facing Perrine. That's their young rookie running back that they drafted out of Florida. If he was healthy in this game, he's out due to injury. But if it was a Le'Veon Bell and Perrine attack coming at you, now I think the Bills may have a little bit worried. But Bell, Gore, I just don't see it over the course of 60 minutes, the Bills having to worry all that much. So before I jump on here into my fourth point, let me go back here and see if we got any more comments. All right, we don't. So let's keep on moving along. So that's how I analyze, offense versus defense, and then again, defense for offense. The other point I want to make here is about Bills kicker Tyler Bass. I think this is going to be pretty important, and I'll talk about it here in a little bit when I give you my score prediction. I don't think he'll be needed in terms of a pressure situation, but they need to get this kid some action. They did a risky thing for a team that should be competing for the division, definitely vying for a wild card spot, and obviously looking to make some noise in the playoffs. Credit Brandon Beane. He did a risky decision by cutting Steven Hauschka. Maybe that was because of, they did save, I think it was about $2.3 million on the cap, if I recall correctly. So, maybe that played a part. But this guy has a powerful leg. I think they need to get him some action. I wouldn't be surprised if you see how I think this game is going to unfold. I just gave you a lot of mismatches there from how I think the Bills should definitely dominate, I think, both sides of the ball in this matchup. Don't be surprised if you see in the fourth quarter, if you start questioning the Bills' play call, if you start, man, that gets awfully conservative here in the fourth quarter. They've been, this game's been open. They've been, spreading it around, going Diggs, going Brown, Beasley in the slot. Like, what happened here in the fourth quarter? I think they may, if the score is in their favor and if they're up by a couple of scores, don't be surprised if they get conservative here and essentially stall drives on purpose to get Tyler Bass on the field. They need to see this guy kick. He needs to get 2, 3, 4 attempts, hopefully, to at least just get some confidence going. Say, hey, I'm in the NFL. I can actually do this. I do have a big, powerful leg. We saw it, at least from some of the Bills reporters that report on the training camp numbers. The guy was good from about 30 yards, 35 yards, and he was obviously he makes his money from 50 and beyond. But he struggled a little bit. He missed, I think it was 3 or 4 kicks in between that, like 35, 40 range up to 50 range. So the Bills are going to want to get him some action. So that's just something I would keep an eye on, is what happens here in the fourth quarter. If you see the Bills play calling dramatically change, I think that's why they need to get Tyler Bass on the field to get him some kicks. So don't be surprised if you see that happening. All right, so let's wrap up the show here with my prediction. I think it's not too hard to think how I think this game's going to go based on how I think the Bills will have their way on offense and the Jets not being able to threaten the Bills' defense all that much. Obviously, the Bills have a top 3, top 5 defense under Sean McDermott year in, year out. So Bills are going to win. Will they cover the spread of 6.5? I think they do cover the spread of 6.5. I've actually got this score 31-10. That's how just dominant I think the Bills' offense can be against this weak secondary on the front seven and on the front seven and in the secondary. And then in terms of that Jets offense, they're going to get a touchdown. It's going to happen, but there's just not much there outside of Crowder, who I think is really their only weapon to attack the Bills. Le'Veon Bell may have a little moment every now and then, but give me the Bills game, or give me the Bills scoring, covering the spread of 6.5. and giving me the score of 31-10 is how I see this one unfolding. All right, guys, don't forget in the video description here of this video, links to buffalodown.com, also links to my latest story. And then every Friday morning, again, don't forget, I will have my Bills Best Bet article that come out where even though I just told you here that the Bills are going to cover the spread of 6.5, there in the article, I go in a lot more detail, really analyzing trends of the point spread and the over under, depending on who the opponent is, looking at the last 3, 5, even possibly 10 years, going back and seeing how the Bills do on a historical trend based on what that over under is for that game and what that point spread is for the game. So that would be a lot of cool. As for these videos, we're going to do these every Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll break down the Bills opponent heading into that Sunday. And then on Sundays, we'll do a post-game show. I'll do it here. It'll be on 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday nights. I'll jump back in here with you guys. We'll talk about how the Bills game unfolded and, break it down and see some of the keys, analysis, and what have you. And then if you guys ever need any sports betting advice, don't forget, obviously you guys know the name of my show from clicking on it and watching this and obviously seeing what I sit in front of. I give out daily sports betting advice every day. So you always look for that content here on my YouTube channel. All right, guys, it's going to be a lot of fun talking Buffalo Bills throughout the entire season and seeing what kind of season they can have. So I'm Jason Mattis again. Thanks for watching this video today. We'll see you Sunday night, and then we'll see you again every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'm Jason Mattis. Have a good one, guys.